Hello everyone, Tom again. My next video is going to be about photographs and how important they are to be taken and recorded in some way so that you know what you've actually taken pictures of. I've just recently gone through some albums and lots of photo albums of family and put them into some sort of order, but there are so many pictures I just don't know who the members of the family are. So it's important to take note and mark them as you put them in your photo albums so that you know in a few years' time or 10 years' time, you actually know who they are. When I took pictures, this is what I took pictures with. I've had this for 40, maybe 50 years. I decided that I would get into photography and try and take some pictures. So a lot of my pictures are in today's video. But as you can see, it is an SLR camera. It's not a digital one. It is in fact a one that you open up inside and you put a spool inside, and then you clip down the thingy and you wipe this, you wind the film on inside, and then you start taking pictures. The problem with that is that when you take them, well, in my day, we used to take them to the chemist and the chemist would process them. So in a couple of days after that, you would get your photographs back. If they were terrible photos, that was tough luck. You couldn't go back and take them again, and you just had to live with some bad photos. So there are some bad photos in my lot, obviously, but they're still memories, and they still remind me of things that I went to and how I spent some time with my parents and siblings. Try and start with the oldest photos that I have in my tennis collection. They are in actual fact glass slides. This is well back into like the 1900s, and I actually managed to get them processed, so I've got them all in hard copy photo form, but I've also kept the slides obviously. And so we'll start from there and just progress through them all. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I apologize for the teddy bear video and the previous video to that. As you can see, I've got a new microphone. I've done a couple of videos with this, and unfortunately the volume was not was pretty bad actually. And so the teddy bear one, which I love doing, was unfortunately way too quiet. So my apologies for that. Hopefully today's is going to be a lot better. I've been to the DJI shop who provide the microphones, and they have found out what the reason for it was, and stupid as it seems, I turned up the volume on the microphone and I should have actually turned up the volume on the receiver. And so hopefully now that they've done that for me, today's video is much clearer, much louder, and not too loud. So enjoy. Let's get on with some photographs. So this is the box of the glass slides. They're Ilford processing plates. They're glass plates, and they're quite thin. They're extremely thin glass, and you can see this is the image that's on this one. And so it produced these photographs here that I have. These are all the pictures that came on. So it's got the tennis court, it's got people that were playing tennis in that time. And these are the size of the plates. Unfortunately, I didn't bother getting them enlarged. I just needed to know what was on the glass slides. And I bought these quite some time ago, probably about 30 or 40 years ago. And they show this tennis club, which I believe is the tennis club in Melbourne. where they played the Australian Open. So I'm assuming that these are pictures of players at the Australian Open. You can see by the dress on this one that this was quite an old style of clothing. Very interesting photographs, and quite good to keep for the history of the tennis, obviously. So these are very interesting to keep for the history of tennis through the ages, and also excuse me, and also because of this tennis club. So this is an old photo of this tennis club in Melbourne. And going on those photographs with no information, one photograph I have, which I'll just show you here. This is a chance that I managed to get down to the lower seating area of the National Tennis Centre watching the Australian Open. And directly opposite me was the players box, and in this box was sitting a player. I took a picture of him. Now, I thought it was Andy Roddick, but I have no idea. I can't remember who the hell it was. So again, it's important that when you get the pictures processed, write the name of whoever it was you took a picture of. When the tennis centre in Melbourne were extending their area of tennis courts and stadiums, I made a point of going up there every Sunday and taking progress pictures of the construction. It wasn't closed off for safety and that sort of stuff. I don't know why that was not the case. Maybe different days, of course, when, you know, things were not hard hat areas and weren't allowed in. And because the tennis centre was still open for general public to play and to do a tour, they probably didn't think that it was beneficial to have it all shut off. So I've got a few photographs that I'll just put to let you see. You might recognize some of the stadiums, and they've got a little plan of what they were going to be building, and also a picture of the multi-purpose venue before it was actually constructed. So they're quite interesting to look at, but it took me probably quite a few months of a weekly visit to Melbourne, and I've got all these in digital format, and so that's the history of the actual construction of the centre. Whether the tennis centre itself has taken any pictures or not, I really couldn't tell you, but they're quite interesting to look at. In the 1930s, Jack Crawford from Australia, who I managed to purchase quite a few of his personal items at auction quite a few years ago, he would travel to tournaments by ship. Now that could take weeks to get from country to country. And amongst his collection are a few photos of him on the ship, and also I've got some pictures of him which are part of his private personal belongings, and they are taken with some players that he was playing with, and these are quite interesting to look at. Why the family don't want them, I'm not sure. There was one huge auction and I managed to get most of it, and so that's a huge thing in my collection. This is a picture at White City, which is in Sydney, and it shows Jack Crawford having defeated Fred Perry. Fred Perry's on the right hand side, and on the back of this photograph is a comment about what it was, which is exactly what tells me what this picture was when it was taken. And it also has a note from the press photographer that it was going to take up 2 columns on the gossip page. This picture here is a picture of Jack Crawford, and it looks to me like it's Roland Garros. Jack Crawford on the right, and the person on the left is Baron von Kram, and it's, oh yes, on the back of this picture it says, before the finals of the French singles in 1934, against Baron von Kram. So that's what this picture is. It is the French Open 1934. So here's the dinner, the International Lawn Tennis Club of Great Britain, where they had a dinner at the Royal Automobile Club in 1935. And the players and their wives or girlfriends or whatever, these are all having a special dinner for that. This picture shows Jack Crawford. I've circled him in red so that you can pick him out from the crowd, but there would have been other players of the day on these dining tables. Some of the pictures that I took, as I said, will be in this little video. So this is one which you can possibly recognize, is Vitis Gerulaitis. 1981, there was an indoor tournament in the town of Seaford, which is in Victoria. I didn't live too far away from this tennis centre. It was an indoor tennis centre. And they held this tournament with some quite famous names at it. Vitis Gerulaitis has been one of them. And it was sponsored by a margarine company, Miracle Margarine, as you can see by the signage on the back of the photo. And again, we have some more pictures that I took. This one is in 1983. It was the Toyota Australian Open. So this was definitely the Grand Slam tournament of the Australian Open. It was held at Kooyong, and this, as you can see, there's some well-known players in here like Pam Shriver, Martina Navratilova, Chris Evert. John Lloyd was in here as well, and Sue Barker. And I've managed to get a few pictures of them. So here we have some pictures of the Marlborough Australian Open. And you can see here's a picture of Billie Jean King. And you can see Billie Jean King's racket. Looks quite large in this. And Ivan Lendl and Mats Wilander were at this. So this was, again, this was the Australian Open, the major tournament for Australia. And the couple of pictures of John McEnroe there as well. This is a composite of photographs about the players, the Australian players of the Davis Cup. It was the Davis Cup champions, and it was the McDonald's Australian Davis Cup team when John Newcombe and Tony Roach were around. John Newcombe was the captain and Tony Roach was the coach. And this is an amalgamation of photographs that were taken, and also you can see here there's a first day cover that was issued. This copy I have is signed by Tony Roach. And this is just showing the history of the players at that particular time. You can see in this picture here the Australian players, which were Pat Rafter, Mark Woodford, Leighton Hewitt, and Mark Philippoussis. And Leighton's hair is quite slicked back in this photograph, which I find quite funny. And this picture here is the one of the team in their official uniform and the boxing kangaroo at the front. So here we have a picture of Neil Fraser, and as you can see, it's quite a young Neil Fraser there. It's written to Damien, best wishes for Neil Fraser, and there is also a letter that's with it. And the story of this photograph, as you can see by this picture, this actual book by Neil Fraser was signed to Damien and his signature inside it. So this photograph is shows you the picture of Neil holding a cup, and also the letter just talking about the book itself and addressing it to Damien. So here's a photograph that I took again. It's a little bit better than previous photographs that I've taken in the past. So at Kooyong Tennis Stadium, where they played the Australian Open, the players were in a grassed area outside, and the public could just sort of walk around, and they weren't, they were fenced off, if you like, but not to the extent where you could maybe jump the fence and harass them. But in this occasion, I saw John and Chris Lloyd together, and I snapped this photograph, and I got it processed, and I thought, well, that's not a bad photograph, so I got an enlargement done. I then took it to the Kooyong Tennis Club reception, and I said, look, I've printed this off, would you mind asking if John and Chris could sign it? And which they did. So as you can see, John Lloyd just signed his name, but Chris actually wrote "To Tom, love, Chris Ever Lloyd." And I like this picture, and I thought this is a time they're sort of with each other, they're married, and they're sort of just having a quiet moment together. So when I got it all processed and signed, I thought, I wonder what they thought about it, because it's a bit personal, obviously. They were just having a quiet moment together, and I thought that was probably quite annoying to them that somebody's taken a picture of them without their permission. So I did feel bad at the time, but it's a picture I quite enjoy. And this lately has given me some different thoughts, because not long after that, I think in the following year that I took this picture, they had separated and eventually divorced. And so now I look at this picture thinking they're not maybe having a quiet moment together, they're maybe thinking, are we actually going to stay together? So the picture changed for me. It didn't say the same love you type of thing that I initially thought it looked like, you know. And so, but it's a personal moment, one way or the other. I've kept it because of that, but it does give me a different feeling now from when it originally was taken. Now you might remember this photograph. It was in my Oddities video. This was when the bison invaded a tennis court in Maryland, and I thought it was in the newspaper, and I thought, oh, I'd like to get a copy of that picture. So I wrote to the people who took the picture, and they sent me this. And also I've put in here a little blow up of the writing of what was taking place at the time. It's quite funny, but and I've got as you see, I've got 2 or 3 pictures of the bison, but I've just put this one in to give you an idea of what was happening. So as I mentioned before, I've got a few personal items of Jack Crawford, and this is one of those photos that was in his collection. It is from 1938, and it shows a picture of John Bromwich and Adrian Quist, and they are on a film set of a film that was called Dead End Kids. And so from left to right, we've got Billy Hallop, who is the actor in the movie, and then it's John Bromwich, Adrian Quist, and the 4th person from the left you'll recognise instantly as Humphrey Bogart. And the 5th person is Leonard Schwartz. And so this was a trip to the USA in 1936, and he was not, well, they would have been playing tennis, obviously, but they had some time off, and they took a tour of this film studio and met these actors. I've got a few pictures of players at Wimbledon, and they are just basically a picture of the player with their name below it, as you can see here in this photograph. This particular one has been made into a postcard, and it's of Rod Laver, as you can see. A lot of photographs that I do have similar to this, with just the picture of the player and the name, were produced by Trim in London, and they were specifically produced for Wimbledon. Now, these were cards that you could probably purchase, or they were maybe handed out. They were exclusively made for Wimbledon by Trim, and these are very collectible cards. This one's a postcard, as you can see, but the Trim photographs will have Trim's name on the bottom to show that it's an official Trim photograph. They were produced, quite a few were produced, so they're not necessarily a scarce thing, but they can be worth a little bit of money if you have the right player. These are another 3 examples of photographs that were taken with players with the names on the bottom. The one on the left is Althea Gibson, who is the American black player. And the one in the middle is John Bromwich. Now, this picture, I recognise the stadium as being Kooyong. This is what the stadium underneath Kooyong looked like. And the guy on the right is Henkel, Henrik Henkel, I believe. And these are another 2 pictures that are in the folder. I've got quite a lot of these pictures. So you can hear this is Ken McGregor on the right, and Larsson, a Swedish player, on the left-hand side. This Lawn Tennis magazine from 1939 shows Joyce Wood on the cover. Now, Joyce Wood was an Australian tennis player, and when I purchased the magazine, inside it was this photograph. Now, the lady that I purchased it from knew the picture was in there, but whether she was going to sell it separately or not, I really don't know. But when I purchased it, it was in there, and she didn't say to me, "Oh, you can't have the picture, it's just a magazine I'm selling." So I managed to get this, and this is actually a Joyce Wood photograph, and it's signed on the back by Joyce Wood as well. At a British auction, I managed to buy quite a substantial number of signed photographs. I've just put a couple in here, but these were quite large photographs. They were maybe 8x10s, and they're of different players at different tournaments. Every one of them is actually signed, so there's quite a few in the collection. So you can see the ones I've put up here, they're of Ashley Cooper. I don't think you get too many photographs of him at that stage of his career. And Roy Emerson on the right hand side, again signed. These ones are of Margaret Smith Court on the right hand side, and the one on the left is the picture of tournament win by Maria Bueno on the left, and Neil Fraser on the right hand side. He's got a nice American buzz cut, but it is actually Neil Fraser. This picture here is a Davis Cup picture. It looks like it might be at Kooyong again. And the person on the left is Sven Davison. So this would have been Sweden against America. And the guy on the right is Tony Trabert from the USA. This photo, as you can see, is in the Davis Cup again. The guy in the white suit just to the right of the Davis Cup is Harry Hopman, who would have been the coach of the Australian team. And on the far left, you can see what may look like a couple of the players. They certainly look American to me. The flag, obviously, on the right is Australia, and the one on the left is America. So this would have been a Davis Cup against USA and Australia. And it looks like they're drawing the players possibly who are going against each other. They're definitely drawing something out of the cup, that's for sure. Here I have an album. It's a very old album. It's from the United States Lawn Tennis Association in 1922. As you can see, the bottom has been cut off, deliberately cut off. You might notice just here is a sliver of gold writing, same as this. This, I understand, was presented to a player from the United States Lawn Tennis Association because the name's been cut off, and this was cut off before I purchased it, so I don't know who it was presented to. If anybody, if anyone comes across this, it would just have a name on it, and it would be that shape. I can't see anybody coming across, but nevertheless. So in here, this has a lot of old photographs, and so there's a few tennis clubs in this. There's a lot of players in this, and so I've just put a couple of those pictures in just to let you see. They're large format pictures. So excuse me, and so I'll put them up for you to have a look at. Again, this is the history. This is what some of the tennis clubs looked like. Now this would have been back in 1922, and I've left the names of the tennis clubs that were put on the bottom of the pictures, so I've left them there for you to have a look at. And you can see what the club looked like in 1922. It's interesting when you look at this picture of William T. Tilden. It's quite an action picture, but the interesting part that I find is that it shows the shoe that he's wearing. So I've just done a little blow-up picture of the shoe. So it shows you, if you're a collector of tennis shoes, this gives you an idea of what they might look like in 1922. They've got studs on the bottom, but they're not spikes, they're just studs. And they're not long, they're not far up the leg to give support. They're just like a normal pair of shoes, if you like, but with studs. You can find a lot of celebrities on tennis courts, like actors and actresses and such, and I've got a couple of them, but this particular one I'm about to show you is David Niven, the English actor, and it is actually signed Sincerely David Niven. Now I've looked at this with one of these little tiny magnifying glasses that jewelers use, and it looks to me like it is actually written over the picture. So I was advised it was a proper signature and not just a facsimile. And when I look at it with that little magnifying glass, it definitely looks like it's been written over the photograph. So in my collection, I've put it in as a signed piece of memorabilia. And so this is him playing tennis, whether it's England or America, I'm not too sure. A couple of weeks ago, I was at a book fair looking to add some books to my collection, and I came across this book here, Bjorn Borg, and it's called Winner Loses All. So I'm currently reading this book, but it talks about his failed businesses, and so it brought to mind the photograph I have here, which is of Bjorn Borg's shop, which was up in Queensland. So my nephew took some pictures of it for me when it was around. It's no longer there, obviously. And he managed to grab some business cards and also this little brochure of all the fashions that were designed by Bjorn Borg. So this is an interesting little collection. But the fact that it was a shop and he took a picture of it, so that's just showing that this shop existed, sold all his fashions that he designed. And other than that, I do have a couple of, I do have this piece which was designed by Bjorn Borg. So I've got one piece of Bjorn Borg's fashion in my collection as well. So here I have a collection of 4 pictures of the Woodies. This is Todd Woodbridge and Mark Woodford. This was them in the Olympics. So the picture at the top right is them having been presented with the medals. And the left, so this was Atlanta Olympics in 1996. And the bottom 2 pictures are not the Olympics. They're just photographs that came with it when I purchased the lot. And they're signed, they're all signed photographs. So I've put them in a little frame and hung them up on the wall, as I said. This is a picture that's in the Jack Crawford collection, in my collection. Jack Crawford's third from the left. And as you can see, Adrian Quist, Vivian McGrath, Jack Crawford and Cliff Sproul, they're all Australian players. And this was in his personal collection that I purchased at auction. Now and then I can come across some family photographs, and I do purchase them if I think they're quite interesting. So you can see here, this is a couple of friends that were obviously playing tennis, but they were in the army at the time. It doesn't tell me who they are, unfortunately, but I thought it was quite an interesting photograph. And this one is a group of players. Again, it was from a photograph album. No idea who any of them are, but I just thought it's an old photograph, obviously. I think they have to be in the era of the style of the dresses and such likes. I don't think it's been a made-up photograph. It's too much to do to put so many uniforms and outfits together. So I think this is an actual photograph of the era. So this picture you instantly recognize as somebody famous, which is not me at the front. It's Ash Barty at the back. And it was a book launch that was presented by a radio station. And she was answering questions, chit-chatting to the radio presenter, and there was a huge crowd at the event. It was held at the Geelong Stadium in Victoria, Footy Stadium. And we all managed to get our books signed at the end of the night. So this is my book. This is the book that she signed, My Dream Time by Ash Barty. She just basically signs it to whoever, and then her name at the bottom. She was not, the people who were running it did not let her spend too much time with everyone because there were so many people there. But she did chat. I mean, especially when the kids were there, any kids were there, she'd spend a little more time with them because she's about getting sport into kids to getting playing. And very interesting night, lovely person, as you would have expected. And yeah, good night. So I'm very happy to have this in my collection as well. Okay, so that's the video for today. I've got many more photographs than what I put on the video. But there's just way too many to go through, so I've just picked out ones that I thought might be of interest. And just to explain about the importance of marking your photographs when you take them, so that for future use, and also future family members can look back and say, oh yes, this was whoever it was, at such and such an event, and people can then reminisce and have a look at some photographs, funny photographs, serious ones, whatever. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's, and look after yourselves, keep well, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye.